The massive space station called Eternal Vigil floated in the darkness between two galaxies. For 3,000 years it had been the meeting place where humans and aliens kept their peace. Today that peace would die. Admiral Jiwan walked through the cold metal halls of the station. Her black uniform was simple, with no fancy decorations. She had been chosen to represent all of humanity at this meeting. Behind her walked 20 other humans, all wearing the same plain clothes. They looked ordinary, almost boring. The aliens were waiting in the main chamber. They called themselves the Kethmaran Empire. These creatures stood 8 feet tall, with bodies covered in sharp crystal plates that grew from their skin like armor. Their eyes glowed red, and when they moved, their crystal plates made clicking sounds like breaking glass. At the front of the alien group stood their leader, a massive creature called Vithtal. His crystal armor was darker than the others, almost black. Old scars covered his face, and his red eyes burned with anger and pride. He had fought in the war 3,000 years ago. He remembered when humans were weak and afraid. So, Vithtal spoke in a voice that sounded like grinding stone. The soft little humans have come to hear their doom. Ambassador Tejo, an older human man with gray hair, stepped forward. He carried a simple briefcase and wore glasses that made him look like a teacher. "We are here to listen to what you have to say," he replied calmly. Vithtal laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the chamber. 3,000 years ago we crushed your pathetic ships. We burned your colonies. You begged us for mercy, and we gave you this armistice only because we grew bored of killing you. The other aliens made clicking sounds with their crystal plates. It was their way of showing agreement and excitement. "Now," Vithtal continued, "we have grown tired of this peace. Your species has spread across the galaxy like a disease. You build your little colonies and think you are safe, but we remember what you really are. Weak, afraid, helpless." Tejo opened his briefcase and pulled out a simple tablet computer. "I see. And what exactly are you proposing?" "War," Vithtal said simply. "Total war. We will destroy every human world. We will hunt down every human ship. Your species will serve us as slaves, or you will die. Those are your only choices." The ambassador looked at the tablet, reading something on the screen. Then he looked up at the alien leader. "I understand. You are formally ending the armistice and declaring war against humanity." "Yes," Vithtal growled. "In 7 days our fleets will begin the attack. We give you this warning only because our honor demands it. Use these 7 days to say goodbye to your loved ones." Admiral Jiwan had been standing quietly during the entire meeting. Now she spoke for the first time. Her voice was soft, almost gentle. 7 days. That is very generous of you." Something in her tone made Vithtal look at her more carefully, but all he saw was a small human female in a plain uniform. Nothing threatening at all. "Do you have anything else to say, human?" the alien leader asked. "No," Jiwan replied. "I think we understand each other perfectly." The meeting ended quickly after that. The aliens left first, their crystal plates clicking as they walked away. They were already planning their attacks, thinking about which human worlds they would destroy first. After the aliens were gone, the humans remained in the chamber. They stood in silence for several minutes. Then Tejo spoke quietly. "They really think we are still the same species they fought 3,000 years ago." "Can you blame them?" asked Captain Minho. He was a young man who commanded a small scouting ship. "We have worked very hard to make sure they think that." Admiral Jiwan smiled, but it was not a warm smile. It was the kind of smile a hunter might wear when prey walked into a trap. "Minho, I want you to follow their ships when they leave. Stay hidden. Record everything about their technology, their weapons, their tactics." "Yes, Admiral," Minho replied. "My ship Silent Thunder is already tracking them. They have no idea we are there." "Good," Jiwan said. "How long until we reach Earth?" 18 hours, Tejo answered. The journey back to Earth was quiet. The human ships looked old and slow compared to the alien vessels. Their hulls were painted with rust stains and scratches to make them appear worn out. Inside, the crew wore simple clothes and used equipment that looked outdated, but Captain Minho's ship was different. The Silent Thunder was completely invisible to alien sensors. It followed the Kethmoran fleet like a shadow, recording every detail. The aliens' ships were impressive, with crystal hulls that sparkled in the starlight. Their weapons glowed with energy, and their engines left trails of beautiful colored fire. Minho watched it all and smiled. The aliens had good technology, but it was the same technology they had used 3,000 years ago. They had become comfortable, lazy. They had not improved because they thought they were already perfect. When Admiral Jiwan reached Earth, she went directly to a building that did not exist on any map. It was buried deep underground beneath layers of rock and metal. The elevator ride down took 20 minutes. At the bottom, she met a man called Director Sunho. He was neither young nor old, with a face that gave away nothing. His office was simple, with only a desk, 2 chairs, and a single computer terminal. "So," he said as Jiwan sat down. "They took the bait." "Completely," Jiwan replied. "Vithatal thinks we are the same frightened species he defeated before. They expect an easy victory." Director Sunho touched something on his computer. Deep beneath the Earth, machines that had been sleeping for decades began to wake up. Across the galaxy on 100 different worlds, similar machines received the same signal. 3,000 years, Sunho said quietly. 3,000 years of preparation, of planning, of waiting. "Do you think it will be enough?" Jiwan asked. Sunho's smile was colder than space itself. "Admiral, they are about to learn the difference between a species that fights when cornered and a species that has spent 30 centuries preparing for war. Activate Protocol Lazarus." In the darkness of space, Captain Minho continued following the alien fleet. Through his ship's cameras, he watched the Kethmaran vessels heading toward human space. They flew in perfect formation, confident and proud. They had no idea that their every move was being watched, recorded, and analyzed. They did not know that humanity had been preparing for this exact moment, since the day the Armistice was signed. They thought they were hunters heading to an easy kill. Soon they would learn the truth. Soon they would understand what humanity had become during those 3,000 years of peace. The war was about to begin, but it would not be the war the aliens expected. 7 days later, the Kethmaran Empire struck with the fury of 1,000 storms. Their massive fleets appeared in 3 human star systems at exactly the same time. The targets were carefully chosen. New Seoul, a busy trading hub, Busan Station, a military outpost, and Jeju Prime, a peaceful farming world. The alien ships came out of hyperspace like silver death. Their crystal hulls reflected the light of the local stars, creating rainbow patterns across space. Each ship was beautiful and terrible, bristling with energy weapons that could turn a planet to ash. War Commander Zethkross led the attack on New Seoul. He stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the human ship scatter in panic. The sight filled him with satisfaction. This was exactly what he had expected. "Look how they run," he said to his officers, "like insects when you lift a rock." The human defense fleet at New Seoul was pathetic. Old ships with rusty hulls and weak shields. Their weapons barely scratched the crystal armor of the Kethmoran vessels. Within an hour, half the human ships were destroyed. The rest turned and fled toward the edge of the system. Among the fleeing ships was a transport vessel called Brave Exodus. Lieutenant Hyun commanded this ship, and her voice crackled with panic over the radio. "This is Brave Exodus. We have civilians on board. Our engines are damaged. Please, anyone who can hear this, we need help." Her ship limped through space, trailing smoke and sparks. Behind her, 3 Kethmaran fighters followed like sharks smelling blood. They could have destroyed her ship easily, but they were enjoying the hunt. "Please," Hyun's voice broke with fear. "We have children on board." "We surrender. Please don't kill us." The Kethmoran pilots laughed. One of them opened a communication channel. "Humans always beg," he said in broken human language. "Very entertaining. We will let you run a little longer before we kill you." But if the aliens had looked more carefully at Lieutenant Hyun's ship, they might have noticed something strange. The damage looked real, but it was all on the outside. The hull was scorched and dented, but the ship's real structure was untouched. The smoke was being made by small devices that created the perfect illusion. On the farming world of Jeju Prime, the invasion looked just as successful. The Kethmaran ground forces landed without resistance. The human colonists fled their homes, leaving behind crops and livestock. It seemed like a complete victory. Engineer Nari was among the captured humans. She sat in a prison camp with 200 other colonists, watching their alien guards with fearful eyes. The Kethmarans strutted around the camp, proud of their easy conquest. "This world will feed our empire for generations," one of the guards said, "and these humans will work the fields as our slaves." But Engineer Nari was not really afraid. She was studying everything. The aliens' weapons, their armor, their technology. Every detail was being recorded by tiny devices hidden in her clothes. Information that would be very useful very soon. The attack on Busan Station followed the same pattern. The human defenders fought bravely but were quickly overwhelmed. The station's commander, Colonel Dong-hyun, sent out a final desperate message before the aliens took control. "This is Busan Station. We cannot hold them. They are too strong. We are evacuating all personnel. May God help us all." The message was filled with static and fear. It sounded like the final words of a defeated man. The Kethmorans who heard it smiled with satisfaction. But Colonel Dong-hyun was not evacuating. He was not even on the station anymore. 3 days before the attack, he and his best soldiers had moved to a secret bunker deep beneath the station's surface. The aliens now controlled empty buildings filled with nothing but automated systems designed to make them think they had won something important. Across the galaxy, the news of humanity's defeat spread quickly. Other human colonies heard the reports and panicked. Some tried to evacuate. Others sent desperate messages asking for help. It all looked exactly like what the Kethmorans expected to see. War Commander Zethkross sent a message to the Kethmoran Emperor. "The humans are even weaker than we remembered, my lord. Their ships are old and slow. Their weapons are useless. At this rate, we will conquer their entire species within 6 months." The Emperor was pleased. He ordered more fleets to be prepared for the next wave of attacks. The Kethmoran people celebrated in the streets of their homeworld. After 3,000 years, they were at war again and victory was certain. But on Earth, Admiral Jiwon was not panicking. She stood in the secret command center, watching the reports come in. Every defeat, every destroyed ship, every captured colony was marked on a giant display screen. "Phase 1 is complete," reported Director Sunho. All 3 attacks proceeded exactly as predicted. "Casualties?" Jiwon asked. "0, Sunho replied. Every person who appeared to die or be captured was either a hologram or a volunteer who was extracted before the aliens arrived." Admiral Jiwon nodded. It had taken incredible planning to make the defeats look real. Thousands of people had worked for months to create the perfect illusion. Ships had been loaded with fake crew members and realistic damage. Colonies had been evacuated and replaced with actors who knew exactly how to appear terrified. "How long before they become suspicious?" asked Captain Minho. He had just returned from following the alien fleets. "Not long," Sunho admitted. "They will start to notice things soon. The technology on the captured worlds is too advanced. The resistance patterns are too similar. They are not stupid, just arrogant." "Then we need to move to Phase 2 quickly," Jiwon said. In space, Lieutenant Hyun was still running from her Kethmoran pursuers. Her ship had led them halfway across the system, always staying just out of range of their weapons. To the aliens, it looked like a desperate chase. In reality, it was carefully controlled theater. "How much longer do we need to keep this up?" asked her co-pilot. 3 more hours, Hyun replied, checking her instruments. "Then we can drop the act and show them what this ship really is." The Brave Exodus looked like an old cargo transport, but appearances could be deceiving. Hidden beneath its rusty hull was one of humanity's most advanced warships. Its real weapons were powered down, its true armor was disguised, and its engines were running at less than 10% capacity. Soon, the aliens would learn that humans had become very good at lying during their 3,000 years of peace. But that lesson was still a few days away. For now, the Kethmorans celebrated their easy victories. They made plans to attack more human worlds. They dreamed of an empire that would stretch across the entire galaxy. They had no idea that every step they took was being watched and planned for. They did not know that their enemy had spent 30 centuries preparing for this exact war. Most importantly, they did not understand that sometimes the best way to win a war is to let your enemy think they are winning. The trap was set. The aliens were walking into it willingly, eagerly. Soon the real war would begin. 2 weeks after their first victories, the Kethmoran Empire struck again. This time they attacked 12 human systems at once. The pattern was always the same: overwhelming force, quick victory, and fleeing humans. War Commander Zethkross was beginning to feel bored, but General Salmon of the Kethmoran Intelligence Corps was not bored. She was worried. As she studied the reports from each conquered world, she noticed things that did not make sense. Every human colony had the same type of buildings, the same advanced technology, the same defensive patterns. It was as if someone had planned exactly where the humans would be weak and where they would be strong. "This troubles me," she told her aide as they reviewed data in her crystal ship. "Look at these architectural scans. These human settlements are far more sophisticated than our intelligence suggested. Some of these buildings use technology we do not fully understand." Her aide, a young warrior named Crickstall, shrugged his crystal shoulders. "Perhaps the humans have advanced more than we thought during the Armistice." "Perhaps," General Soman said. But she did not sound convinced. On Earth, the true scope of humanity's preparations was finally being revealed. Dr. Youngji stood in a laboratory that stretched for miles beneath the planet's surface. Around her, thousands of scientists worked at stations filled with alien artifacts, biological samples, and technological analysis. "Show me the Kethmaran physiology report," she said to her assistant. The holographic display showed a detailed image of an alien body. Every organ, every biological system, every weakness was mapped and labeled. Beside it were chemical formulas for substances that could target each specific part of their anatomy. "How long have we been studying them?" the assistant asked. "Since the day the Armistice was signed," Dr. Youngji replied. 3,000 years of observation. We know how they think, how they fight, how they live, and how they die. We probably understand their own biology better than they do." The laboratory was just one part of humanity's secret preparations. In hidden bases across the galaxy, similar facilities had been working for centuries. Every intercepted alien communication had been analyzed. Every Kethmaran ship that passed through human space had been secretly scanned. Every piece of their technology had been studied and improved upon. Captain Wu Jin stood in another hidden facility, addressing a group of soldiers who did not officially exist. They called themselves the Ghost Division, and for good reason. Each of them had spent years learning alien languages, studying alien culture, and training for missions that could not be discussed outside this room. "The enemy thinks they know everything about human military capability," Wu Jin told his troops. "They have studied our ships, our weapons, our tactics. What they do not know is that everything they have seen is fake." He gestured to a wall display showing human ships in battle. Every vessel they destroyed was designed to be destroyed. Every weapon they defeated was meant to fail. For 3,000 years, we have been showing them exactly what we wanted them to see. The Ghost Division soldiers listened without emotion. They had trained for this their entire lives. Some of them had been born in the hidden facilities, raised from childhood to understand that their entire existence was preparation for this war. "Your mission is simple," Captain Wu Jin continued. "Infiltrate their supply lines, disrupt their communications, make them afraid of shadows, but do it so carefully that they never realize they are being hunted." Meanwhile, in space, the Kethmaran fleets were beginning to experience problems. Ships that should have been able to communicate across vast distances found their signals blocked by mysterious interference. Supply convoys that should have been perfectly safe disappeared without sending distress calls. Commander Hithmal was the first to report these issues to his superiors. His patrol group had been assigned to guard a supply route between two conquered human worlds. It should have been an easy assignment. "We have lost contact with 3 transport ships in the past week," he told War Commander Zethkros. "Each time they simply vanish. No battle damage, no debris, no survivors. It is as if they never existed." Zethkros was not interested in hearing about problems. Perhaps they encountered asteroid fields or technical difficulties. "Do not worry about minor supply issues when we are winning such a glorious war." But Hythmal knew it was not that simple. His sensors were among the best in the Kethmaran fleet, and they showed impossible things. Sometimes, for just a moment, they would detect a ship where no ship should be. When he tried to investigate, he would find nothing but empty space. The human ship Silent Thunder, commanded by Captain Minho, was responsible for most of these mysterious disappearances. His vessel used technology that the Kethmarans could not detect or understand. It could become completely invisible, move without making any sound, and strike without warning. "Target acquired," Minho said as another alien supply ship appeared on his sensors. "All weapons charged and ready." "Sir," his weapons officer asked, "should we destroy it completely?" "No," Minho replied. "Make it disappear. No wreckage, no evidence. Let them wonder what happened." The Silent Thunder fired a single beam that disintegrated the alien ship at the molecular level. One moment it was there, the next moment it was gone. To anyone watching, it would look like the ship had simply vanished into nothing. On Earth, Admiral Seokjin stood before a massive wall display that showed the entire galaxy. Red dots marked Kethmoran positions. Blue dots showed human settlements. But there were also green dots that the aliens knew nothing about. "Status report," he said to his staff. "Phase 2 is proceeding perfectly," reported his aide. "The enemy has taken the bait completely. They are advancing exactly where we want them to advance. Their supply lines are stretched across 17 star systems. And our hidden assets? All in position. 47 sleeper facilities are ready to activate on your command. Ghost Division has infiltrated 6 major alien installations. The confusion campaign is working better than expected." Admiral Seokjin smiled grimly. The green dots on the map represented humanity's greatest secret. For 3,000 years they had been building hidden bases, secret weapons, and underground facilities. The aliens thought they were conquering human space, but they were actually walking into the largest trap in galactic history. "Sir," another aide approached with an urgent report. "We have received intelligence that the Kethmorans are planning a major assault on the Proxima system. They want to capture our shipyards there." "Excellent," Seokjin replied. "That will put them exactly where we need them." "How many ships are they sending?" 200 vessels, including their newest battleships. It will be their largest fleet so far." The Admiral's smile grew wider. "Perfect. Order all sleeper protocols to standby mode. It is almost time to show the Kethmorans what 3,000 years of preparation looks like." Deep beneath Luna Base, Director Sunho sat in his office, reading reports from across the galaxy. Every human defeat, every alien victory, every step of their advance had been planned decades in advance. The enemy was dancing to humanity's tune, and they did not even know it. His computer chimed with an incoming message from Admiral Jiwan. She was requesting permission to move to the final phase of their plan. Sunho looked at the message for a long moment. Once he gave this order, there would be no going back. The secret that humanity had kept for 3,000 years would be revealed. The galaxy would learn what his species had really become during those long years of peace. He typed a single word in reply. "Approved." Across human space, that word triggered systems that had been waiting for centuries. In hidden bunkers, sleeping soldiers began to wake up. In secret shipyards, weapons that should not exist powered up for the first time. In laboratories deep beneath peaceful planets, biological weapons designed specifically to target Kethmoran physiology were loaded into delivery systems. The trap was about to be sprung. The hunters were about to become the hunted, and the Kethmoran Empire was about to learn that some prey species evolved into predators when given enough time. The awakening began at exactly 0800 Galactic Standard Time across 47 star systems. Colonel Dongyun opened his eyes in the cryo-sleep chamber deep beneath Busan Station. Around him, 10,000 other soldiers were waking up from their long sleep. They had been waiting 3 weeks for this moment. "All units. Report status." Dongyun spoke into his communication device. "Ghost Company ready, sir," came the first reply. "Shadow Battalion operational," said another voice. "Hunter Squadron standing by." One by one, military units that did not exist on any official record confirmed they were awake and ready. Above them, the Kethmoran forces that had conquered Busan Station had no idea that an entire army was stirring beneath their feet. In space above New Seoul, something impossible happened. The empty region where no human ships had been seen for weeks suddenly filled with vessels. Not the old rusty ships the aliens had been fighting, but sleek warships that seemed to appear from nothing. Captain Minho no longer commanded the tiny scouting vessel Silent Thunder. Now he stood on the bridge of the massive dreadnought Iron Resolve. The ship was 3 miles long and bristled with weapons that used technology the Kethmorans had never seen before. "All ships report ready." "Captain," his tactical officer announced. Minho looked at the display showing the alien fleet that occupied New Seoul. 24 Kethmoran vessels hung in space around the planet. Confident in their victory, they had no idea they were about to become prey. "Begin Operation Reversal," Minho commanded. The Iron Resolve dropped its invisibility shield and opened fire. But these were not the weak energy beams the aliens had grown used to. These weapons tore through Kethmoran crystal armor like paper. The first alien ship died before its crew even realized they were under attack. War Commander Zethkros was eating his morning meal when his ship's alarms began screaming. He rushed to the bridge just in time to see 3 of his escort vessels explode in brilliant flashes of light. "What is happening?" he roared at his crew. "Unknown contacts," his sensor operator replied, panic clear in his voice. Human ships, but they are not like any vessels in our database. The tactical display showed the impossible truth. The human fleet that had appeared from nowhere was not just bigger than anything they had seen before. It was better. Their weapons were more powerful, their shields were stronger, and their technology was completely beyond Kethmaran understanding. "How many ships?" Zethkros demanded. 67 and counting, sir. More are still appearing." The war commander stared at the display. This could not be real. The humans were weak. They had always been weak. Their ships were old and pathetic. But the vessels destroying his fleet were centuries ahead of anything he had ever seen. "Send a message to the homeworld," he ordered. "Tell them we need reinforcements immediately." But his communications officer had bad news. "Sir, all our long-range communications are being jammed. I cannot reach anyone outside this system." Meanwhile, in the Proxima system, Lieutenant Hyun was finally dropping her disguise. For weeks, she had been running from Kethmaran fighters in her supposedly damaged transport ship. Now it was time to reveal what the brave exodus really was. "All crew to battle stations," she announced over the ship's intercom. "Activate all hidden systems. Drop the false hull plating." The rusty, damaged exterior of her ship fell away like an old coat. Underneath was a sleek warship covered in weapons and armor. The Kethmaran pilots who had been chasing her stopped in shock. "What is that thing?" one of them asked over the radio. He never got an answer. Hyun's ship destroyed all 3 fighters in less than 10 seconds. But the real surprise was happening on the planets themselves. On Jeju Prime, engineer Nari stood up in the prison camp where she had been held captive. Around her, 200 other prisoners were also standing. The Kethmoran guards moved to stop them, but suddenly found themselves surrounded. "Sorry for the deception," Nari said politely to the alien camp commander. "But we were never really your prisoners." The crystal-armored alien reached for his weapon, but Nari was faster. She pulled a small device from her pocket and pressed a button. Instantly, a field of energy surrounded all the Kethmorans in the camp. They could not move, could not speak, could not even blink. "Paralysis field," Nari explained to her confused captors. "We have been studying your nervous system for 3,000 years. This device sends signals that completely shut down your motor functions. Do not worry, you will not die. You will just be very still for the next few hours." Similar scenes were playing out across the galaxy. Every human colony that had been conquered was revealing its true nature. The weak, frightened civilians turned out to be highly trained soldiers. The primitive settlements were actually military bases disguised with holographic projectors. Dr. Youngji stood in the medical bay of a human ship, preparing the final component of humanity's revenge. For 3 millennia, her people had been developing biological weapons specifically designed to target Kethmaran physiology. Not to kill, that would be too simple. These weapons would do something much worse. "Deploy the neural disruptors," she ordered her team. Across the galaxy, tiny devices no bigger than insects were released into the atmosphere of every world the aliens had conquered. These machines sought out Kethmaran life forms and infected them with carefully designed viruses. Within hours, every alien soldier would find their own crystal armor turning against them, growing out of control, becoming a prison instead of protection. Director Sunho watched the reports coming in from his office beneath Earth. Every part of the plan was working perfectly. The enemy fleets were being destroyed or captured. Their ground forces were neutralized. Their supply lines had been completely cut, but the most important part was the psychological effect. For the first time in their history, the Kethmaran Empire was learning what it felt like to be completely outmatched. A communication signal finally broke through the jamming. It was War Commander Zethkros speaking from his damaged flagship. "This is impossible," the alien leader said, his voice filled with disbelief. "Your species was weak. We defeated you easily 3,000 years ago. How do you have such weapons?" Director Sunho smiled as he opened a channel to reply. "Commander, you did defeat us 3,000 years ago. That defeat taught us a very important lesson. It taught us that being strong is not enough. You must also be prepared." "Prepared for what?" Zethkros asked. "Prepared for you," Sunho answered simply. "We have spent every day of the last 3,000 years getting ready for this exact moment. We studied you, learned from you, and built weapons specifically designed to defeat you. You thought the Armistice meant we had given up. Actually, it meant we were buying time." On his screen, Sunho could see the alien commander's red eyes wide with shock. The crystal plates of his armor were beginning to grow out of control. just as Dr. Youngji's biological weapons had been designed to make them do. Every ship you destroyed was built to be destroyed, Sun Ho continued. Every weakness you thought you found was deliberately shown to you. Every victory you celebrated was part of our plan to bring you exactly where we wanted you. Zethkros tried to speak, but his voice was becoming distorted as his own armor began to cover his throat. The difference between your species and mine, Sun Ho said gently, is that you fight wars to win glory. We fight wars to win. Goodbye, Commander. The communication ended. Across the galaxy, the Kethmoran Empire was learning that 3,000 years of preparation could not be overcome by simple warrior pride. They had awakened something that had been sleeping, and now that something was showing its teeth. The Kethmoran homeworld of Morkethus had never seen panic before. For 10,000 years, it had been the center of a mighty empire. Its crystal cities reached toward the sky like frozen lightning, and its people had never known defeat. But today, fear filled the air like poison. Emperor Valkorus stood on the highest tower of his palace, watching his people prepare for war. Every ship in the empire had been called home. Every warrior, every weapon, every resource was being gathered for what they thought would be humanity's desperate final attack. They cannot possibly threaten our homeworld, the Emperor told his advisors. Even if they have better technology than we expected, they are still just humans. We have 1,000 ships defending this system. Our planetary shields are impenetrable. This world has never fallen to any enemy. But his confidence was shaken by the reports coming from the front lines. Entire fleets had vanished without a trace. Conquered worlds had turned against their occupiers. Most disturbing of all, many Kethmoran soldiers were dying from their own crystal armor, which seemed to be growing out of control. General Summon, who had survived the disaster at New Sol, stood before the Emperor with news that no one wanted to hear. My lord, she said carefully, I believe we have made a terrible mistake. The humans are not the same species we defeated 3,000 years ago. Nonsense, Valkorus replied angrily. They are still the same weak creatures that begged for mercy. With respect, my lord, that is exactly what they wanted us to think. The Emperor's red eyes glowed brighter with rage. Are you suggesting that we have been deceived? I am suggesting that we have been studied, General Soman said. For 3,000 years they have been watching us, learning our weaknesses, preparing counters to all our strengths. Every defeat they showed us was carefully planned to make us overconfident. Before the Emperor could respond, the palace sensors detected something impossible. A massive fleet was approaching Morkethus, but these ships had not come through any of the hyperspace routes that led to the system. They had simply appeared as if they had been hiding in the darkness between stars. Admiral Jiwon stood on the bridge of the super dreadnought Terran Wrath, watching the alien homeworld grow larger on her screens. The ship was the largest vessel humanity had ever built, 10 miles long and carrying enough firepower to destroy entire planets. But it was not alone. Around her flew a fleet of 300 ships, each one representing the pinnacle of human technology. They had been built in secret shipyards hidden in the empty space between galaxies. For centuries, humanity's best engineers had worked on these vessels, knowing that they would one day face the entire Kethmoran Empire in single combat. Sir, her communications officer reported, we are receiving surrender offers from 12 different alien commanders. Decline them all, Jiwon replied calmly. This is not about conquest. This is about education. The battle for Morkethus began not with the massive space fleets, but with something much more subtle. Captain Wu Jin and his Ghost Division had been on the planet for months, disguised as traders, diplomats, and workers. When the human fleet appeared, they activated their hidden mission. Across the planet, Kethmoran communication networks went dark. Power plants shut down. Transportation systems stopped working. The mighty crystal cities that had stood for millennia suddenly found themselves blind, deaf, and helpless. How is this possible? Emperor Valkorus demanded as his palace lost power. The answer came from a voice speaking perfect Kethmoran from the palace's own communication system. It was Director Sun Ho, somehow broadcasting from inside their most secure facility. Hello, Emperor, the human said politely. I am speaking to you from your own throne room. I have been here for quite some time. Valkorus spun around to see a simple human man sitting calmly in the Emperor's own chair. The alien guards raised their weapons, but Sun Ho held up a small device. I would not recommend that, he said. This device controls the biological weapon that is currently in your bloodstream. If I release this button, your crystal armor will grow until it crushes you from the inside. The Emperor stared at the human in disbelief. When did you? 3 days ago, Sun Ho replied. Captain Wu Jin's people have been infiltrating your society for decades. We know everything about your empire, your technology, your culture, your weaknesses. We probably understand your own people better than you do. In space, the battle was no longer a battle. It was a demonstration. Admiral Jiwan's fleet was not just defeating the Kethmoran navy. They were dissecting it with surgical precision. Every alien tactic was countered before it could be deployed. Every weapon was neutralized by technology they could not understand. The Kethmoran flagship, a massive crystal vessel that had never been defeated, found itself surrounded by human ships that seemed to ignore the laws of physics. They moved without engines, fired weapons that had no visible source, and shrugged off alien attacks as if they were gentle rain. Surrender. Admiral Jiwan's voice came over the alien ship's communication system. You have fought bravely, but this war is over. The alien admiral, a proud warrior named Thekvar, refused to believe what he was seeing. Our shields are impenetrable. Our weapons are the finest in the galaxy. Your shields use technology we gave you, Jiwan replied calmly. 3,000 years ago, when we signed the Armistice, we included gifts of friendship. New technologies to help your empire grow and prosper. What you did not realize is that we built backdoors into everything. The truth hit Thekvar like a physical blow. For 3 millennia, the Kethmoran Empire had been using technology that humanity could control remotely. Their best ships, their strongest weapons, their most advanced systems, all of them had hidden weaknesses that only humans knew about. You planned this from the beginning, he whispered. We planned for this from the beginning, Jiwan corrected. There is a difference. We hoped it would never be necessary. On the planet below, Dr. Youngji was delivering the final lesson to Emperor Valkoris. She stood in his throne room, surrounded by alien technology that no longer worked, speaking to a being whose own body was slowly betraying him. Your species is obsessed with strength, she said gently. You believe that might makes right, that the strong deserve to rule the weak. But you never understood what strength really means. And what does it mean? The Emperor asked, his voice distorted by the crystal growths covering his throat. Strength is not the ability to destroy your enemies, Dr. Youngji replied. Strength is the ability to defeat them so completely that they never want to fight you again. She gestured to a holographic display that showed the entire galaxy. Every Kethmoran world was highlighted in red, and every red light was going dark as human forces took control. We could have destroyed your empire at any time during the past 1,000 years, she continued. Our technology became superior to yours centuries ago, but destruction would have taught you nothing. Instead, we chose to let you defeat yourselves. How? By letting you believe you were strong when you were actually weak. By letting you think you understood us when you understood nothing. By giving you 3,000 years to become comfortable, lazy, and predictable. The Emperor's crystal armor was now covering most of his body, but his eyes still burned with intelligence. And now? Now you have learned that true strength comes from preparation, patience, and understanding your enemy better than they understand themselves. This is a lesson your species will remember for the next 10,000 years. Director Sun Ho stood up from the Emperor's throne and walked toward the balcony that overlooked the Crystal City. In the distance, human ships were landing at strategic points throughout the metropolis. There was no fighting, no destruction. The Kethmorans were simply too shocked to resist. The war is over, he announced to the assembled alien nobility. Your empire will survive, but it will be different. You will learn to live peacefully with other species. You will learn that strength without wisdom is just another form of weakness. Captain Minho's voice came over the communication system, reporting from orbit. Sir, all enemy fleets have surrendered. We have complete control of the system. Any casualties? Sun Ho asked. 17 humans wounded, none seriously. Kethmoran casualties are approximately 3,000, mostly from their own biological reactions to the armor virus. Sun Ho nodded. Even in victory, humanity had been careful to minimize loss of life. This was not about revenge or genocide. It was about teaching a lesson that would echo through history. Years later, when the war was remembered in history books, scholars would note that it lasted exactly 3 months and 17 days. The Kethmoran Empire, which had dominated the galaxy for 10 millennia, was defeated so completely that they never again considered warfare as a solution to their problems. Captain Minho, now an old man with gray hair and kind eyes, stood before a class of young human officers. He was teaching them about strategy, patience, and the long view of history. The armistice lasted 3,000 years, he told his students. The war lasted 3 months, but the lesson will last forever. One of the students raised her hand. Sir, what was the most important thing humanity learned during those 3,000 years? Minho smiled, remembering Admiral Jiwon, Director Sunho, and all the others who had planned for a war they hoped would never come.